When people think of Stranger Things, they usually imagine the mix of 80s nostalgia, coming-of-age adventure, government experiments, and of course, terrifying creatures from the upside down. But beneath all the colorful throwbacks and heartwarming friendships, there is a much darker influence shaping the story, one that takes the series closer to the world of H.P. Lovecraft. This Lovecraftian touch not only explains why the show feels so unsettling at times, but also serves as a reminder of another horror gem on Netflix that leaned even harder into this style of storytelling. That show is Archive 81, a one-season wonder that embraced cosmic horror in ways few modern series dare to explore. Since its debut in 2016, Stranger Things has become one of Netflix's biggest success stories. At a time when most shows on the platform barely make it past 2 or 3 seasons, the Duffer Brothers' supernatural drama has managed to keep viewers hooked for nearly a decade. The series has built an enormous fan base, turned its young cast into stars, and delivered unforgettable monsters like the Demogorgon and the Mind Flayer. Yet, even with all this success, the show is reaching its end. Season 5, the final chapter of the saga, is set to drop in 2 parts, with the first half releasing on November 27, 2025. Fans are already buzzing with theories and anticipation, but the long wait has left a gap that horror fans are eager to fill. That's where Archive 81 comes in. While Stranger Things blends multiple genres, sci-fi, horror, fantasy, and teen drama, its connection to Lovecraft's cosmic horror is undeniable. Lovecraft's stories often dealt with hidden dimensions, ancient beings, and the terrifying realization that humanity is insignificant compared to the larger universe. In many ways, the Upside Down feels like it was pulled straight out of one of Lovecraft's tales. A world that exists just beyond our perception, filled with monstrous beings that operate on rules humans can't understand, is the essence of cosmic horror. Archive 81, though very different in style and tone, plays with many of the same ideas. Inspired by several of Lovecraft's works like The Color Out of Space, From Beyond, The Call of Cthulhu, and the music of Eric Zan, the series fully dives into that feeling of helplessness against unimaginable cosmic forces. The story follows a man tasked with restoring old videotapes, only to discover horrifying links between occult, supernatural rituals, and beings from another world. As the mystery unfolds, it becomes clear that the characters are brushing against forces that exist far beyond their understanding. This is where Stranger Things and Archive 81 overlap most. Both shows explore the idea of crossing over into another dimension, and both highlight the terrifying consequences of looking too closely at something that was never meant to be seen. Lovecraft's short story From Beyond is a perfect example of this theme. In it, a scientist discovers a way to see a hidden dimension by stimulating the pineal gland. But the catch is, once you can see the creatures in that dimension, they can also see you. That idea is mirrored in Stranger Things, where experiments with psychic powers opened a gateway to the Upside Down. Once the monsters in that world became aware of the human world, the characters could never truly escape their attention again. And the creatures of Stranger Things also carry Lovecraft's fingerprints. From the very beginning, the Demogorgon wasn't just another monster. It was a being that felt alien, ancient, and horrifyingly intelligent. The Mind Flayer took this even further, embodying the parasitic and unknowable qualities of Lovecraft's Great Old Ones. In Archive 81, the cult worships a cosmic entity called Caligo, a figure whose motives remain mysterious, but whose influence spreads like a dark shadow across human lives. The parallels are striking. Both shows present their monsters not as villains with clear goals, but as incomprehensible beings whose existence alone is terrifying. Another common thread is the way human characters react to these entities. In Lovecraft's stories, no matter how smart, strong, or determined the protagonists are, they ultimately face the crushing reality that they cannot control or stop cosmic forces. Humanity, in Lovecraft's vision, is tiny compared to the larger universe. Stranger Things often reflects this through its characters, who, despite their bravery, constantly find themselves up against impossible odds. In Archive 81, the protagonists also struggle with the realization that they are pawns in a much larger and darker game. What makes Archive 81 particularly painful to revisit is the fact that Netflix canceled it after just one season. The show had so much potential, and while its story may not have been as broad in appeal as Stranger Things, it was one of the purest examples of Lovecraftian horror streaming has ever seen. When it premiered, the series quickly climbed Netflix's top 10 list and generated plenty of buzz. Fans were eager for more, expecting that its cosmic horror mystery would continue to deepen in future seasons. But without any clear reason, Netflix pulled the plug, leaving the story unfinished. In hindsight, canceling Archive 81 feels like one of Netflix's biggest missteps in horror programming. While it's true the series lost some steam toward the end of its first season, the foundation it had built was strong enough to carry at least one or two more seasons. It could have expanded its mythology, fleshed out Caligo's role, and delivered even more chilling connections to Lovecraft's cosmic horror. Instead, it remains a one-season show that ended too soon, leaving behind only a glimpse of what might have been. Of course, it would be unfair to directly compare Archive 81 to Stranger Things. The latter became a cultural phenomenon, blending horror with heartwarming friendships, 80s nostalgia, and massive blockbuster-level storytelling. Archive 81 was darker, more unsettling, and aimed at a more mature audience. But for viewers who love the Lovecraftian elements of Stranger Things, watching Archive 81 feels like peeling back the surface layer and diving into the pure horror roots that influenced both series. As Stranger Things heads toward its final chapter, now is the perfect time to revisit Archive 81. Not only does it scratch the same itch of mysterious dimensions and incomprehensible monsters, but it also highlights why Lovecraft's influence continues to shape modern horror. Watching it with Stranger Things in mind makes the connections even clearer to the hidden worlds. The cult-like obsession with ancient beings, the constant sense that humans are meddling with forces they can't possibly control. In the end, the legacy of Archive 81 is bittersweet. It may never get the chance to expand its story, but its single season is still a haunting, worthwhile experience for horror fans. For those waiting for Stranger Things Season 5, it is the perfect show to fill the gap and remind us why Lovecraft's cosmic horror continues to inspire some of the best stories in modern pop culture. And as Stranger Things prepares to close its doors, perhaps Archive 81 will find new life as more viewers discover it. Proof that even canceled shows can leave behind a lasting impact.